Okay, let's look at your assignment. You're going to do assignment 4 here. And assignment 4 is actually based off of example 6 from the normalization and sample questions. And I have it repeated here so you don't have to flip back to where it was over there. But basically, it's the table about a physical therapy clinic. And the clinic is made up of various um, therapists that provide a wide range of treatments. A patient can come for more than one treatment, and a patient can be assigned more than one therapist. But and the therapist can do any one of the treatments for the patient. So every therapist can do every possible treatment. So let's take a look at the data that we have in here. And you see here, Lois Haas came in for knee treatment and is being treated both by Iona Morin and Robert Alexander. And so one treatment, but two therapists. Here we have Sophia Riggs. Sophia Riggs is actually coming in for two different treatments, both for back treatment and knee treatment, and is being treated by Robert Alexander and Kara Snow. But either of those therapists can provide either of the treatments, okay, and so on. And you've noticed that there's an awful lot of redundancy there, and so actually this is broken at two levels. It's broken at 2NF because of the compound keys in there, and it's also broken at the level of 4NF. And you can actually take a look at the answers to the sample question, what's going on there. But basically, it breaks down into three tables. There's the therapist's degree, and there you just have the therapist and the degrees that they have. And then you have patient treatment. So there's the patient and the treatment he or she are receiving. So there's Sophia, for instance, that was receiving two treatments. Mark, it looks like, is receiving three. And then there's also the patient therapist table, which associates the therapist with the patient that is treating them. Okay, so you're asked to write a file called clinic-schema.sql, and it's to contain the SQL to create that's the above schema. That is a database plus the three tables, or a database with those three tables. And you should make sure that you call your database whatever your last name is, followed by underscore clinic. Okay. I didn't tell you what data types to use, so just choose the correct data types and figure out what the primary key should be for each of the tables. Okay. Um, Now, once you've written this clinic-schema.sql, I want to see the file, but I also want you to load it into our MySQL server. And don't forget that for that, you can actually drop the database and recreate it each time you load the schema.sql. And the reason for that is that we're in the development cycle of the implementation of our database. And so there's no useful data in it right now, and it's perfectly safe to drop the previous schema and then re-upload it. And that's okay because, if you make a syntax error, you can fix it and then just drop the schema that's there and recreate it and so on, okay? So the next thing you're to do is create another file called clinic-data .sql, and it's supposed to populate the SQL with this data. Okay, so I want to see this exact data in the database. All right, so do that, and then load that data into our MySQL server. Okay, and we're actually going to do a couple of queries. So the first set of queries, we'll put it in a file called clinic-q1.sql. All right, and I want you to write the queries that will answer the following questions. I don't want you to actually answer the questions. I don't want you to go through the database and find out what the answers will be to these questions. I want you to write the queries that would generate those answers. Okay, don't forget that databases are dynamical, so data would be added and removed, but the queries will remain the same in the sense that you're always asking the same questions but of a different set of data, which is in the database. Okay, so also I want you to use the new join syntax, okay, obviously. All right, and I've also given you the tuples for the columns so that there's no confusion. Let's take a look at the questions. First query is which therapist is treating which patient? So I want you to basically do a join that does that. I'll give you a hint. You don't actually need a join for this one because it's just one table. But what I want to come out is the therapist's name, first and last name, and the associated patient, first and last name. Okay, and the next query is what treatment is each therapist doing? All right, and the way that table should look like is it's the therapist's first and last name followed by the treatment that they're doing. Okay, and then the next query is what are the degrees of the therapists that are doing each that are treating each patient? All right, I don't want the names of the therapists. I just want the name of the patients and the degree of the therapist that is taking care of those patients. And you might say, well, why would you ever want to ask that kind of a thing? I don't know. I mean, maybe you want to see if one particular patient is getting all the PhDs and other patients are not. So, you might have reasons for asking that kind of question. So basically, again, I want to know what are the degrees of the therapists that are treating each patient. So you'll have the patient name and the degree of the therapist that is treating that patient. Okay. Next, what are the degrees of the therapists that are providing each treatment? Same idea here. You want to have a treatment and then the degree of the therapist that is doing that treatment. Again, I don't want the therapist's name in there. I just want the treatment and the degree of the therapist that's providing that treatment. Once again, you might say, why would I want such a query? Maybe to answer questions like, is one particular type of treatment getting all the PhDs or something like that, okay? And E is which therapist or therapists are providing knee treatment. Okay. All right. Question number 6. We're going to have a new therapist join called Martha Appleby. And since she's new, she's not treating any patients at the moment. So I want you to do a few things. I want you to write the SQL to insert Dr. Appleby into the database, and write the SQL query, which gives a list of all the therapists and all the patients they might be treating, even if that therapist is not treating anyone, okay? And so in the case when a therapist is not treating anyone, they should still be listed, but you should have nulls in the place of the patient's name that are associated with the therapist, okay? So put all of that into a file called clinic-q2.sql. And then finally, just to practice a MySQL dump, I want you to dump the entire MySQL database as I showed you in last class, and dump it into a file called clinic-dump.sql. Okay, and that'll conclude your assignment. All right, that's it for this lecture, and next lecture will probably just be a Google Hangout in which we'll talk about these what we did in this section and just review for the test.